Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Merson and this is my 3.1 video analysis reflection. So as I was watching both classrooms, what I saw the teachers doing was guiding their students, specifically guiding them to the objective that they had laid out for that unit or that lesson. So they were constantly bringing it back to that objective. I also saw them facilitating whole group discussions, small group discussions. They were facilitating conversations with students. And then they were also managing behavior, managing disagreements as they came up. And then as for the students, they were really in the driver's seat in both classrooms. So they were the ones in the control. They were the ones who were shaping the conversation and shaping the projects. They were also being teachers. I'm thinking of the butterfly garden lesson when she had students really teach their classmates to their whatever strengths that they had. So if they were an artist, they were teaching their group how to draw things. If they were really good with the computers, they were teaching the rest of their class how to use the computer for the project. And then the students were also in a learning role because they were learning from their peers, they were learning from their teacher as well. So when you have these types of classrooms where you're giving students a lot of autonomy, there can be benefits and challenges to that. And so some of the benefits are that there's a lot more engagement. When students are learning from their peers, they're going to be a lot more engaged in what is being said and what is being taught than if a teacher was up there lecturing the class. I also think a benefit is that they dive more deeply into the content. So in the butterfly garden lesson, instead of asking them what they know and then just moving on, she let them really dive deep in so many different facets. So they were running a business, they were creating plaques, they were really planning an entire garden. So they dove way more deeply into so many different areas than they would have if the teacher was just reading from a book about butterflies. In the high school classroom, they were diving more deeply in their content because they were the ones who were asking the questions and they were kind of moving further into the content than the teacher may have had them originally. Another benefit is the social skills. In both of those lessons, they were disagreeing with each other. They were adding on, they were agreeing, they were sharing. They were trying to manage and figure out who was going to be the leader, who was going to sit back this time. So those social skills are a really good benefit of running classrooms like that. I also think that both of those lessons modeled what real life looks like, more so than when students are just sitting at a desk and staring at a computer teaching. So that's definitely a benefit. I also think that these kinds of lessons help make it not so obvious when a student is getting an accommodation. So it helps teachers kind of use the tiers or the levels in RTI more not so obvious as maybe if you're in a classroom where this kid's getting a 10-page test and then this kid's getting a 1-page test, and it's really obvious that this kid is getting an accommodation. So some of the challenges that can arise in these types of lessons is that everyone's voice may not be heard. I've done used Socratic seminars or discussions in my class before, and it took a lot of practice because we'd only have, in the beginning, 1 or 2 students' voices heard. I also think a challenge can be handling disagreements, and I think that depends on your class and how you set it up. But when students do have disagreements, whether it's in group work or in a discussion, you have to be able to handle that quickly. I also think a challenge is that as a teacher, if you're having a whole group Socratic discussion and a question comes up that you don't know, it can be really hard to admit ignorance about something that, is in your content, in your class that you maybe should know. And so being able to admit that you don't know that and then figuring it out together, and that can be a challenge for some teachers. I also think, I know myself as a teacher, when I run classes or discussions like this, I have a hard time myself staying on task and then making sure that my students are staying on task and focused. So that can be a challenge. I think a piece of technology that could have helped out in both of these was Padlet. And Padlet is an area where students can really all be able to share their voices and everybody can see what everybody's thinking. They can comment on each other's comments and they can agree, disagree. You can add pictures. There's lots of different things that you can use. But I think it's important to note that technology is not a replacement for face-to-face discussions and social interactions. And I think we're seeing that. It's really obvious right now during distance learning. There's no technology for that social interaction. And I found it really funny that in the article about the urban legends by Kirshner and Marenbar, that they talked about how we kind of just assume that students are really literate when it comes to the digital world. And I think that most of us educators really thought that and then really found out within the first week of distance learning that our students really aren't. And it's something that we need to teach them. So in a classroom that's set up like that, I think some of the norms and structures that we need to put in place is that from the beginning, we need it to be the teachers and the students working together. It's not, I'm the teacher and I know everything and you guys don't know anything and you have to just take everything that I'm giving you. It really has to be, we're all working together for the common good for us to learn. I also think that there needs to be, whatever task that we're doing, it needs to be tied to something meaningful. So whether it's an authentic audience, like in the butterfly garden, they had the plaques they were making. And so they had an audience at the end. They were going to put it out in the garden and people were going to see it. So I think that's important. I also think there needs to be respect needs to be a class norm, respect of differences, respect of all kinds of learners, and that each of us is different and we may not learn in the same way at the same time, but as long as we work hard and we try, we'll get there. I also think that the classroom needs to make sure that there's autonomy for the students to kind of navigate their own learning as much as they can. And then I think that trust and a safe space is really important, because if there isn't trust and it isn't safe for the students to make mistakes, then they aren't going to learn as much as they should. So in the videos, it was really hard for me to answer this question. Is the classroom depicted accessible to all students? I think the word all threw me off because I don't know that there's a lesson that is accessible to every student all the time. I don't know the students in those classes and their strengths and weaknesses and IEPs and 504s and where they are in the RTI process, none of that. But thinking about my own class and doing those lessons, in the elementary classroom with the butterfly garden, I think that it did a really good job playing on the strengths of the students. It really had students as teachers, they had a lot of autonomy with what they were doing, and they had an authentic audience. So I think a lot of students that would be accessible for. Then in the high school classroom, they had a lot of discussion. It wasn't a particular question that they had to answer. They could go back and forth. And I think that would be really accessible to a lot of students. However, I'm thinking of kids in my own class. So I have a student who is selectively mute. And so in that discussion format, it wouldn't be accessible to him. He would not be able to participate in that group discussion. So adding things like Padlet or adding an online format where he can add his voice to the conversation is really important. I also think of students in the past that I've taught where I've had to have like the hearing technology, the microphone that I wear on my chest for that student. And so I think when you're having those whole group discussions, that can really be kind of hard for that student because they're not able to hear everybody unless the teacher is moving around and making sure the microphone is on the person that's talking. And when you're in that discussion format, that can be really hard. So I don't know that there is any lesson at any time that's accessible to all students all the time. I think both of these lessons are accessible to a lot of students, but not all. So as for accommodations, and thinking of these two lessons in my own class, I think adding technology, whether it be using the speech-to-text feature on Microsoft Word instead of having a kid type, using graphic organizers before you have a discussion so that a student is ready to share and prepared, maybe having smaller groups if you have a student who has a lot of anxiety so that they feel more comfortable sharing and their voice is able to be heard. I think when you do group projects, an accommodation is like having check-ins along the way to make sure that that student or that group of students is on the right task or on the right track. And then I think that chunking the work or chunking the discussion points is helpful for most learners as well. All right, well, thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to hearing what everybody else has to say about the videos. Bye.